Hey guys, it's Jay here. Today I want to talk about this blog post that I read by Sahil Bloom. The title of it is How to Change Your Life in 1 Year. It's not anything different that you wouldn't hear from a self-help book out there right now. It's pretty simple, right? You set a goal, you clearly state what your goal is, and then you do something that grants you to achieve that goal every single day for at least 30 minutes a day. So for example, if I wanted 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, then I would do something every single day to get me to that number, either writing a script or filming a YouTube video, basically for at least 30 minutes a day. I think there's one thing that's always overlooked in execution type advice, which is the fact that you still have to decide what you want to do first. If you're anything like me, then I feel like setting goals is always kind of difficult. And as we get to the new year, we're gonna be setting a lot of goals as our New Year's resolutions that we don't really want to fall away or to actually, not actually work out. And one thing that I found previously is that when I set goals, I feel like there's a circular paradox when I start executing on them as well. And what I mean by that is that sometimes when the motivation fades, I don't feel like doing it anymore, but at the same time, I'm actually questioning to myself if I actually wanted to do it anyway. For example, if I really wanted it so bad, then why am I not actually going out there and sticking to a habit to do it every single day, right? And so sometimes the problem here is really separating the actual execution of the tasks versus the actual desire of your goal. For example, is it because I'm not really good at building habits into my life that I don't actually achieve it, or is it because I didn't actually want it that much? For me, what I want to know is, how do you actually choose the right thing? In the current state of the tech world right now, there's a lot of people that are getting laid off or thinking about switching jobs because we're just in that recessionary environment. When you're in a recession, everyone wants to look to do other things because the thing that they're doing right now probably isn't succeeding that much. If you're an entrepreneur like me, then it'll be somewhat of a loss to see not as many gains from your business or from your YouTube channel. But if you're also working in a job, you might be stuck in a position where you know that you don't like working at the current company or you don't like the current role, but you don't really know what you want to do next. And for everyone else that always knows what they want to do at any given time, I applaud you, but that's not me. And just stop watching this video. So for anyone who's also trying to answer this question, including me, what I found was helpful was me actually going back to 3 different transitionary phases in my life and analyzing exactly how I approach those situations. For me, those 3 were actually when I was in college. I was trying to figure out what to major in or what to do basically after college. The second time was when I was a data analyst at a startup in Silicon Valley a few months after college. I was trying to figure out if I should jump into another job or if I should do something completely different. And then the last time was when I was a data scientist at Nextdoor, and I was trying to figure out if I should quit my job to start the company interview query or just to continue at my current job. So for me, what I find helpful is to look back on these 3 experiences and understand exactly how I made the decision that I made to get to where I am today. And hopefully the person that I am today is not a regret of the person that I hoped for in the past from the future. That didn't make any sense. What I'm saying is, the future me that eventually made those decisions in the past to get to where I am, I can only rely on those decisions as being good because they got to where I am now, which is currently in an okay to good state, right? And so, never mind. All right, so the first thing I want to analyze is my time back in college when I was in electrical engineering at UW and trying to figure out what I wanted to do after college. And if I could break them all down, it actually turned out like this. Basically, when I started out as an undergrad, I got poor grades in my prerequisite majors for electrical engineering, which and then kind of turned me to not really enjoy electrical engineering or anything required there. Eventually, what I realized was that you actually have to study for tests. And so long story short, I actually got my grades, turned them around, but I still didn't enjoy it that much. And so that's what led me to researching jobs that paid well, which then led me to look around to look at different kinds of finance jobs like banking or quantitative finance or financial engineering, which then eventually, after a few more months of realizing that the hours for that are terrible, led me to actually realizing that I wanted to find data science. And that was just the last 10 years basically sped up. And that basically turned me into where I am today. So if I evaluate that, what was the framework here? So the framework there for me is actually a few things. One is acceptance of change, right? So realizing that you're not happy where you are right now, or realizing that you want to improve the current state, right? And I feel like this is like the first step in any sort of, change in your behavior at all, right? Like think about grievance, right? They say the first step is acceptance. Same thing for here, right? You realize that you have some activation energy towards doing something different. Second thing that helped, at least for me, is prioritizing your values in life, right? So one thing that happened was that okay, I knew I didn't want to do electrical engineering, so what do I want to do? This thing, I think you can go pretty raw in terms of what you care about and what you don't care about, right? Like for me, when I was thinking about future job industries, right? I thought about finance. I was like, okay, I want to make a lot of money. That's why I cared about finance. That's why I looked into it. I didn't choose art history for a reason. I chose finance because I thought of art finance equals money. Then I looked into how many hours that people in finance worked, and apparently it's super long hours, right? Like if you're in baking, you're working like 16 hours a day. That sounded horrible. I was like, I don't even like doing anything for 16 hours a day, much less just like, concentrated at work. And so immediately nullified that as well. And so once you prioritize your values, like for me, it was like making money, but then there's like a threshold of where I'm willing to work. But I knew I wanted to do something interesting while I was working. At the same time, I knew that I wanted to do something technical. And that's kind of where it dives into the third part, which is finding your advantages. And so for me, I think it's, okay, I know that I have a bunch of values that I like, right? Like I want to make more money. I don't want to work long hours, right? Everyone in the world, right? So now you try to find your advantages. And so for me, I knew that I was analytical a little bit, right? In college, I had technical as well. I was in an engineering major at that time. And so for me, it was like, okay, how do I combine this Venn diagram of basically things that I want to do and then also things I'm also good at, right? Pretty clear. Fourth step for me was brainstorming different choices. So here, this is where you got to do a lot of research. You got to just go around and just figure out what exists in the subspace that you're making a life choice for. So if you're thinking about what career choice you can make, you can basically look at every single career that is out there, right? Like YouTube is great for this, for day in the life videos. Then you can look at exactly how much they make in terms of salary as well. YouTube is also great for that, as we all know. And so for me, this just required a lot of research. It's just like literally you could type career choice, highest salary, and then go, top to bottom, right? And the fifth one that I think people don't really do as much, but I think is really important, is actually constraint of your different choices, right? And so this is kind of coming with measuring your trade-offs here. If you think about setting constraints, basically you're trying to reprioritize the different kinds of values within the constraints of the different industry or the kind of career that you're jumping into. So for example, for me, one thing that I was really interested in was filmmaking back in college, mainly because I really enjoyed watching movies. And so the constraint for me, I think, was looking at that career as a holistic kind of big picture, where it's like, okay, what does success mean for me and in this field? Success means, becoming a Hollywood director. All right, what's the percentage chance of getting there? And then how long do you actually have to work toward it to actually getting there? And if you think about it, I don't want to go on a tangent here, but Hollywood director is probably pretty hard, right? And if I'm not having that dedication and desire to put in that 10 to 20 years of just filmmaking while also sustaining a living, then it's going to be really hard to get there. Same thing with any other kind of job. Think about it with data scientists, think about it just starting a startup, right? The constraints there are very different. With a startup, you actually have to dedicate, 5 to 7 years based on if you raise money or not, and then also towards focusing on work as like your biggest priority. Versus if you get a job, at the same time, work probably doesn't have to be your number one priority. It could be your second or your third over, different things like family, relationships, whatever. If I think about this as for data scientists, I think all those jobs are, pretty similar. But if you think about it into the larger expanse of things across actuarial science versus starting your own company, joining a startup, joining a bigger tech company, you can also kind of make some decisions there as well. If I had to recap, every single time you're trying to decide what to do next, and this is for all the people that are, laid off, not happy, want to think about what they might want to achieve, there's definitely tons of stuff out there for how you can achieve it once you know what to do. But also just deciding what you want to do, I think should take a little bit more thought and thoroughness before you kind of go into the new year with some goal, whether it's transitioning jobs or staying where you're at and like improving in your current job. I would say try these frameworks out in your head. Just like accept what has to change in any kind of situation here. Figure out what your general values are in life. Prioritize your inherent advantages in the situation that you're in. Brainstorm some different choices. Spend some days just thinking about what your different kind of simulation fantasy lives could be, if you're thinking about the different kinds of possible futures here. And then lastly, think about the constraints and the reprioritization of all those different futures, right? If you choose this one thing, then what happens to this other priority that you have? If I become a finance banker, can I still go surfing every morning? You're probably not thinking that, but I am. But if you're trying to work in big tech, are you going to be interested in your job and what you're doing versus if you're working on a startup, and how much does that matter to you versus getting, 1x, 2x, 3x more pay? Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like and subscribe on this video, and And let me know what you think in the comments below. All right? See ya.